Hello and welcome to another episode of Points of Interest with your hosts Demetrius Minor and Joey Traina. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving holiday. Welcome back to the show, and today we're starting, or actually for the whole show, we're so pleased to have Jill Peterson.
Welcome to Points of Interest, Jill.
I consider her a friend. Hopefully that'll last through to the end of this episode. But I think I invited Jill on because I thought I think she's a great journalist. She's always starting problems with other local talking heads, and that's always great. We like to have her on here. Maybe we can start a couple of problems or diffuse some problems. We'll see in our conversation.
Looks like you're starting to create a firestorm already here, Jill.
I just want to set the ground rules. We're all going to be respectful. But we're all going to talk about some hard-hitting issues, hopefully. And as per usual, we're going to start with national. And Demetrius has been keeping up. And we're going to talk a little bit about the campaign. What do you got for us?
Well, you got we're 5 weeks out of the first caucus, the Iowa caucus, and that'll be Tuesday, January the 3rd. And some interesting developments. Newt Gingrich has been surging. He's ahead in the polls. Well, depending on what poll you look at. He is.
He's back all the way from the '90s. He's back.
Newt's back. Newt.
He's gonna bring the party back. Huh?
At the beginning of this campaign season, he was in debt. I mean, he had a horrible campaign.
His whole team dropped out at one point.
And it's similar to how John McCain was in 2008. And now he is a presumed front runner with Mitt Romney. The interesting thing to know about these primaries, it's been fluctating, up and down. Up and down, new flavors of the month.
Well, Kane was kind of flopping for a bit. I mean, he had a couple of gaffes at the Libya, and now there's another accuser. Well, not accuser, actually. She's basically saying, yeah, we've had an affair for about 13 years.
Well, that would make her an accuser. I mean, allegedly.
Their accusations, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Her name is Ginger White.
But that's not actually a crime, an affair. There are people accusing him of actual crimes.
If it happened, it is not a crime. You're right, legally speaking.
We can let that one go.
but once again,
so we should so that one's dead in the water, or
I don't care if he didn't harass someone against her will. I'm not as interested.
Yeah.
I don't care about his business.
Okay.
I mean, at all.
And something to note here. There's
but
been no proof.
But other women say that they've actually been sexually harassed, don't they? That's the more problematic, I would think.
Right. But once again, we're speaking from a legal matter. There has been no proof. And all these women, coincidentally, have the same pattern. Filing for bankruptcy, unemployed, no job, single mother.
And they all knew Herman Cain at some point.
Allegedly. No,
I think
allegedly.
that's probably the biggest thing.
Just because you know somebody does not mean that they sexually harassed you.
Nor does filing for bankruptcy mean that you falsely accused.
No, right, I'm saying, but it's strange. It's very funny that all of these women pretty much have the same,
why does it?
He has a type.
Why doesn't it's pretty obvious.
Where's the
this
proof?
guy's got a type. But why doesn't he file for anti-defamation?
That's what I would do.
Why doesn't he take this head on? Rather than just deny. It doesn't seem to be helping him.
Well, I mean, number one, I'm not a lawyer. So, I don't know the legal matters of it. I do understand that if you do such a thing, it takes weeks, it takes months for this to get settled in the courts. And the guy is running a presidential campaign.
But it sends a message, right? I mean, it sends a message. If he charges them with doing him an illegal, an injustice, a wrong, to him while he's in this, campaign.
Joey, this is, when people say, well, it's in the voter's hand. Look, this election is always in the voter's hand. Listen, right now, I think you're at the point, you either believe him or you don't.
Okay.
And the only time will tell, especially with the Iowa caucus and the upcoming primaries, if this really has damaged him. From what I perceive, from when I look, there's some people who have become skeptical. You can't blame them for that. But yet, he still has staunch supporters, people urging him on. And actually, he is still doing fairly well in Iowa, has a very good organization going on.
Well, isn't his abortion stance that well, he's not quite clear on it himself, but the first thing I heard on his abortion stance was that he had no exemptions, even for the life and safety of the mother. So anyone who's going to vote for a guy who doesn't care about a woman dying, because it's a problem pregnancy, it really isn't going to care that he also sexually harasses women. So I'm not worried about his voters.
His voters probably already have an idea of
Yeah.
what sexual harassment means.
I fail to
women's,
see the connection between his abortion stance.
I'm talking about his voters. If his voters
His
can
voting bloc.
tolerate that stance, I think they can also probably take it with a grain of salt, the harassment charges. I don't see them coming up. It's not National Organization for Women who are voting for him.
Right.
It's not the feminists voting for him. So I don't think.
Well, I mean, but also abortion in this election is really not a main issue.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the
Right.
people who can deal with him can probably deal with this.
People are looking for facts.
No, they're not.
Well,
No,
yeah.
they're not.
Well, listen.
No,
there
they're
has
not.
been. I will tell you now.
an
If
election.
there are some hardcore facts that came out that shows that Herman Cain is lying, he will lose a lot of support.
Well, the fact is
there is no
4+ women have come out and said that he's been sexually deviant. I guess. with them.
Do we have to
And that's-
rewind to the Clinton years?
What was he accused?
No.
Well, I'm saying it's the same scenario. I don't
Yeah.
get, a lot of people are telling me, look, and I understand what you're saying about the black cloud of doubt. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but a lot of people are looking and say, hey, look at the history of these women. All these women are coming out. Why are they coming out now?
Well, yeah,
there's been no proof. No, there has been no legal proof.
Okay.
And that's what you want. You want to wait for a jury, judge, what have you to.
Now, I'm not
to
saying
rule
this should
on.
grand
Like,
jury.
what would satisfy
Provide-
you? Video evidence, fingerprints. What evidence do you want besides an accusation?
Jill, the only thing we have is he say, she say.
So
And
what
this is not
evidence are
just
you-
for Cain. If this for
So
any
what
of the
evidence are you holding out for? What could there possibly be?
Okay, for example, if this is a 13 or 14-year allegedly affair,
I'm
that's
not
a
worried
long
about the
time.
affair. I don't care about
okay,
the affair.
you want to go
Well,
back
actually,
to
they
the
have
section?
proof on
I
that. They
wanted
have
to-
telephone records and
well, there you go.
there's records of him providing gifts toward what have you.
He's
There's even an interview with
he's
a
already
young lady
said
who-
he's
yeah.
already said that he provided financial assistance to this woman.
He
Okay,
is
well
so
that
sweet.
would
He is so sweet.
But he said he's done that for plenty of people. Just because you give financial
Is there a
assistance to
pattern to
somebody,
the people he gives the assistance to?
did the other accuser say they had financial assistance?
Well, I just thought we were dealing with patterns. I bet there might be. I
Wait,
bet we
wait,
could find a pattern.
what's
Who
the
gives
proof?
assistance
Where-
to?
where-
You can
where's
always
the proof?
find those patterns.
What proof?
For example,
You're looking for more than circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial
Has
evidence.
there,
You're
let
looking
me
for
ask you,
proof.
has there
You're
been
looking for something that's beyond reasonable. Now,
Has there been substantial evidence saying that he sexually harassed this people?
What would you accept as evidence? Is what I'm asking.
Hotel records.
Sexual harassment doesn't.
No.
involve hotel
I'm talking
records.
about for the
You
for
keep
the one
talking about
woman.
that. I don't care about
Listen,
the affair.
I'm not talking about the affair. I'm talking about the one woman that says, hey, he sexually harassed her in the car. He upgraded her room. At the certain hotel, we have no hotel records. He said he's never even met her. And also, people who have worked at the NRA, the National Restaurant Association, which these women are claiming when he was working there at the time, have come out in defense of Cain. Prominent people, his secretary, his receptionist.
Wow.
Well,
Impressive.
these are people who work with him on a daily basis.
so he didn't harass them. That's evidence to support that he did not harass them. It's not necessarily
No,
he
I'm
didn't
not-
harass
I'm
others.
not just the receptionist, but this has never, ever come up during that time.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, he's a front runner, he's running for president.
Well,
and these
yeah.
people come out of the woodwork.
I think we've presented well, kind of your stance and her stance, and my sort of still curiosity over what's going on. So I think we can move on from the Herman Cain allegations because there's a lot more going on in the nation, and actually we wanted to talk about politics at large.
Right.
Also to move into that.
Sure.
But there'll be more to talk about with Cain, I guess, moving forward. We'll see what happens.
And you're right. I mean, we'll see.
Herman Cain jokes aren't that fun without video clips.
It's true, and he writes his own jokes a lot of
He
the
writes
time.
his own jokes, as does Rick Perry.
But let me tell you something.
And, yeah.
We'll leave it at this. You can laugh and you can joke all you want, but
That's the
I
beauty.
would like to see when Herman Cain does very well in the Iowa caucus. I would like to see the mainstream media.
We're
try to
taping.
spin
He's
that.
taping. We know we're taping right now. Okay. All right. So we have a prediction. Herman Cain will do very well.
He's going to finish very well.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
Great.
who did well in the last one?
The
Was it
last Iowa caucus. Well, that would have been.
Mike Huckabee.
Oh, was it?
Are you referring to 2008? Mm-hmm. Right. Mike Huckabee.
Okay, sure. Anybody can win.
So how much of an indication, I guess, is the Iowa caucus then as to who's going to win the nomination?
For example, let's use King and Gingrich here.
Yeah.
If those two do very well, it's a strong indication on how they would do in the primaries following that, such as South Carolina and Florida primaries in the South. And it shows how much momentum you can get, and, how much money you can continue to get towards your campaign. I'm not saying that the winner of the Iowa caucus will be the nominee. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Barack Obama won Iowa. He eventually became the nominee.
Sure.
Huckabee won Iowa. He did not become the nominee. But it will give people some kind of indication on how your campaign will go forward.
Yeah. I think it raises the question of, well, who's going to do well? Because we are still so far out from the election. And we still have so much. It should not be
election season yet. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Usually this is when people are announcing. This is usually when people are saying, "I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna run." And
you might still get some.
And we're still having all these debates and still so much uncertainty as to whether who's gonna get it.
I don't know how you feel about this, Jill. I think there's been too many debates.
Way too many debates. We should do it like England. 6 weeks of campaigning. Everybody gets the same amount of money. The end. We don't care who makes a lot of money. I'm not interested in people who make a lot of money. Deke Copenhaver can raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
What else can he do? Not interested.
Yeah, that's American politics. I mean, the money is just flowing in at this time.
It means you can please rich people. That's not impressive.
I don't think that's a good message to send to the country at this time, when really what we need to be talking about is jobs, the economy, growth in the homeland.
Yeah.
And really what we're seeing is all this money thrown around for CNN, Google, debates.
They feed each other. It's
Bloomberg debates.
It gives them ratings, and it seems like the dumber, clownier people they can get up there, the better the ratings. I mean, Jon Stewart keeps talking about it. It helps Comedy Central. It helps all the mainstream media. It helps the satire. It's like the clownier the better. They just keep piling up money.
Which for television ratings means they can sell more dish detergent and insurance. And what else do we see?
I like the dish detergent.
Pharmaceutical.
Oh yeah, pharmaceutical.
Goodness. So England, and then even pre-Carter, we had a system where the money wasn't so pervasive, and the campaigns were run in a way so that people could make decisions about who the candidates were, not just what kind of jokes you write about.
Let's discuss the party platforms here, and I know you wanted to talk about the state of American politics as far as political parties are concerned.
And so, full disclosure. Demetrius Meyer's affiliated with the local Republican Party. I'm president of the Young Democrats of Richmond County and part of the general party here.
Two parties that are not major parties at all.
Well, and so we're always here and we're always talking. And so I wanted to bring Jill on because I don't want anybody to feel like, we should monopolize or that we're always just talking heads for those entities that we're affiliated. But,
you guys would not keep Nader out of the room. You guys would
let
Nader
wouldn't.
sit here.
I walked around middle school with, vote for Nader shirts on myself. So, I mean, and kids were like, this is 6th grade. So everybody's like, who is that? Is that like a rock star or something? And they're like,
Yes, that is like a rock star.
But anyway, look up Ralph Nader. He's interesting, yeah. In any case, Jill, you prompted us with a question on Facebook, actually, that made me want to bring you here because, a lot of people are tired of the party system. And you can probably speak more to that.
Okay, my question to you guys would be, you both seem to be still loyal to your parties. I see that a lot of people are losing loyalty to their parties, especially the D and the R. I've myself have lost my loyalty for the D. And I wonder, what would it take for you guys to be turned off? What could possibly the Democrats or the Republicans at large or individually do to turn you off?
Well, first of all, I want to refute the notion that I'm loyal, 100% loyal to the Republican Party. That is not true. As a matter of fact, I've been one of the many that's been pushing against Mitt Romney because I believe that just because you have
so has the rest of the Republicans.
Well, except for the establishment Republicans. You see, there's a difference between
the moderates.
Well, I believe you should hold people in your party accountable. As far as I'm concerned, everybody with an R behind their name does not have conservative principles. I mean, Mitt Romney, Meghan McCain, John McCain, for that matter. So just because they have an R behind their name or claim to be a Republican does not necessarily mean I am going to support them. Me personally, I look for the person who has good, true conservative principles.
So you're not a Republican robot. Now, what would it take to get you to lose the party? I have an answer for that. If you want, I can for my party at least. If you want to think more on how you would be lost from the party.
Lost completely.
What would turn you totally
That
away
you just
from?
wouldn't call yourself a Republican
Yeah,
anymore.
you would go back in and register independent.
If the Republican Party continues to be victimized by the establishment and the status quo on all levels.
It's already pretty sad how they're
so you would
victimized.
find you would find a party that wasn't being victimized. You'd find a better representation, something that would.
First of all, no party is perfect. It's more with which party aligns the closest to your value system.
So if it no longer aligns to your values.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Republican Party is perfect, because it's not. There's a lot of flaws, just like in any party. But as far as the value system, it's closer to what I believe in my values and principles.
Okay. So I guess the answer to the question is there isn't anything that would make you lose faith in it unless it no longer represents your values and it suffered too great a victimization.
Well, if I see the whole party as a whole try to move more towards like the left, then there's the notion that says, hey, this just isn't working.
Okay.
And then what would you jump into? The Constitutionalist Party?
Libertarians, I don't know. I'm sure. Anyway, D would make his own party. He's that powerful. He's that influential. Now, for my own sake, as far as loyalty, I've never been especially loyal to the party. I mean, just from experience, because I'm actually pretty new to the Democratic Party. My house was never one size fits all. My mom's Green Party. My dad comes from the Third World, where the government and the military and the churches were all in the same bed. So he's very suspicious of any organized political movements unless they speak to the messages of the people at large.
Right.
So he himself, he'll jump in and out of and he speaks out against the Democratic Party a lot. But he'll go to meetings and so that's kind of where I align. Is in 2008, I was inspired by the campaign of Barack Obama, and I'm a member of the party locally because I see that as the best vehicle for me and my views. It isn't perfect. It never has been. The Democratic Party today is vastly different from the Democratic Party 10 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We're like polar opposites. And so that's where I kind of see this the growth. And so I think you can look at local. I think you can look at politics. You can look at state, national, all this, and you can say, wow, it's really corrupt. Things aren't working. There's money in everything. The top percent has all the power. And you can say, you know what, just forget it. I'm not voting. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to join some socialist party or third party, or I'm going to make some. I don't know. You could go another route, or my decision is to get into the establishment in order to seek to change the establishment.
That's a classic. That works every time.
It's classic. Well, that's the way I see it as. I guess it's kind of Machiavellian. It's to say that the greatest. Well, now I'm getting a couple quotes in my head at the same time, but to say that we can only change things by the best mechanisms to do so. And if the two parties have the power, then my idea is to get into one of the parties that I agree with more so, and use that in order to create the change that we need. And the Democratic Party
think you can steer that machine at all in there? That's a big machine.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to take a lot of work, and that's why I'm encouraged by a local party, because local parties are where it starts. Local parties, if you're not involved with your local party, then you've made a decision to just go with what you've got and what they're giving you. But when local parties is where you see everyday people that live in your area that want to see similar changes with you.
It starts with
and so with delegates from the local parties, you can affect states, and from states you can affect the nation. But if you don't get started, nothing's going to happen.
It starts with the local community.
And it's easier to change something by going with the flow, going with the currents. And in order to change them, as opposed to going head on.
People who are tired of the status quo, people who want to hold government elected officials accountable, which we should, and people who want to go out there and say, look, we're going to hold you accountable. If you don't do what you're elected to do, we're going to kick you out. I mean,
but we don't even hear about what they're really doing. So,
in what regard?
So you follow national politics, and you hadn't heard about this detainment thing. So what news are you listening to that you're not hearing that the Senate voted yesterday to to allow the military to indefinitely detain Americans on American soil under suspicion of terrorism without a charge. So our news doesn't really tell us that so much. So how do we hold them accountable when they don't tell us the unpleasantries?
Listen, I tell people all the time, look, don't listen to the mainstream media has its own agenda.
And it's
And I want to tie that to
corporate.
what you're saying about the two-party system, and that the campaign or the debates that we see, they're sponsored by the parties and their corporate, I guess.
ABC, Fox, CNN,
They're
CBS.
like
Yeah.
a NASCAR. They might as well have stickers all over them. All
So
over them.
absolutely, yeah, and so
Industry analogy.
so we're not being especially served by them in the media or in these debates necessarily. We're being set up for the election, what have
It's
you.
a
that is
homecoming
also
king
run by-
election. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
And it wasn't always that way, but we've always had some form of the two parties.
Yeah.
And it's also, another reason why I'm a Democrat and not trying to start another party or go, hang out with the coffee movement. I think as opposed to the Tea Party, there's the coffee.
It
there's
never
the coffee
excited
party
me
or
very
something.
much, yeah.
Is that
Decaffeinated coffee, though?
I'm
It's decaffeinated.
pretty sure it's all caffeinated with
And
but
soy milk, I hope.
there's definitely soy also in there, and pure green sugar.
Thank you,
So
Turbinado.
none of this aspartame or whatever. No, what keeps me there is because mathematically, 51% dictates to 49%. That's how our elections run nationally, statewide.
Another bad idea.
Local gets, which, bad idea goes back to our, to the foundation of the country. Now, we can change things. There's nothing to say that in 10, 20 years, we or the parties or people in the parties or voters could decide we want something else. We
in
want
10 to
direct
20
democracy.
years, the political
I personally don't agree
landscape
with.
will be completely different.
Right.
Well, there's no startup allowed now. If you starting something up at this point, you get indefinitely detained.
Oh, I see. Right. So
forget it.
this legislation
What do you mean is starting a political movement?
Yeah, if you do anything
if you're seen
too
as
much,
anti-establishment or
that can be considered terrorism. You don't need to be charged with anything.
For example,
It's a fear.
let's
It's a
use
fear.
Why
the
is Bradley Manning detained?
Let's use the Tea Party movement, for example, which was a movement to go up against the establishment. And whoa.
And
No,
taxes.
Not just Obama. The Tea Party has been against establishment Republicans as well. Look, I've been to Tea Party rallies. I've been
want new
observing the Tea
Republicans.
Parties.
They want new, more fierce Republicans.
It's electing conservative leaders. It's not just anti-Obama. It's anti-establishment. Because I tell you right now, the Tea Party movement does not support Mitt Romney.
Right.
He's a Republican. So it goes to...
he's not red enough.
But they definitely support a
not
Republican.
conservative enough.
But they definitely support a Republican. I would be so surprised if they supported a Democrat.
I would tell you right now, if Mitt Romney is the nominee, you will not see the Tea Party vocalizing and being visual for Mitt Romney. Now,
Okay.
I'm not saying that come
But again,
voting time.
I
They're not going to
don't
be
any
any less against Obama than the Democrats.
I don't think the
anything
Tea
progressive.
Party. I don't think any Tea Partiers are going to get detained. I think some people on Wall Street. I think protesters of Wall Street might be getting a little scare put into them.
Yeah. Well, so it's important.
have you seen
the
what the
legislation we're referring
protesters
to?
at Wall Street have done?
We'll get to that. The legislation we're speaking to is
that's some
we're going to
criminal
post a
activity
link to it online in some articles. There's already an article up right now, but we'll see to give you some more current information.
Not as much criminal activity as there is in the buildings in Wall Street.
There you go. Hey, there we go.
Not even close.
What we've got here now is an
So
effort in Congress.
I have a question. So are we promoting one criminal activity
Of course not.
over the
but
other?
which one
Well,
are you
civil
more
disobedience.
concerned about? Which one are you more concerned about?
Listen, I think the Occupy Wall Street people have the right as American citizens.
We know
to
for a fact
protest.
they do. We don't have to
have
worry
the
if
right.
we think that.
But when they start doing criminal activity,
They can be arrested for that criminal activity. I'm talking about them being detained just for protesting without charges.
No, I don't agree with that. Of course.
Well,
Right.
well, the Senate does.
And so we have a bipartisan effort
The
right now.
Republicans
There's,
in the Senate do almost
Oh, yeah.
as far as I know,
Well,
unanimously.
Listen. Let's
civil
take
liberties
a-
really
well,
take a
let's-
beating
let's-
from
let's
Republicans.
take-
We
let's
know
take-
that. And some Democrats.
Let's take
Yeah.
a detailed look here at the top. When you're talking about terrorist suspects and you're talking about criminal suspects, those are two different scenarios.
Well,
and should not
from
and
this
should
legislation,
not be
right.
compared.
From this legislation, those lines get blurred as to whether you're a terrorist or a criminal, however you want to, blue collar,
If
you
you're a
stole a
terrorist,
TV or something.
if you're a terrorist, you do not have the rights of American citizens, plain and simple.
What if you're
Well, you
suspected
and
of
Newt
being a
Gingrich and many
terrorist?
people would agree to that.
What if you're suspected of being a terrorist? Do you have rights?
If you're suspected of being a terrorist, no.
Well, actually, you don't.
I don't know. I don't know.
Suspected. Well,
That's why I said this is criminal activity and terrorism activity.
But nobody's talking about
Right.
criminal activity. I'm talking about if someone is suspected of terrorism, you're okay with them being indefinitely detained without charges?
Okay, first of all, we have to look at the case. Because right now what we're doing, we're
There's
talking about
no case.
hypothetical.
No, we're talking about legislation.
So-
the legislation that's trying to go
Legislation
through now
is hypothetical.
to say that
Yeah, well,
that
you're talking
suspected-
about when you're talking about terror. You're talking about terrorism here, okay? And a terrorist suspect that's doing terrorist activities.
No.
Okay?
Suspected.
Well, suspected. That means that they're suspected of doing terroristic
Right.
activities.
Right, that
Okay?
means they're
They are not under the same laws and privileges as a regular U.S.
well,
citizen.
you may have to have a warrant, but even that warrant is due process, is a part of due process. If what we're talking about is legislation that says you don't have to get a warrant, that says you can be detained, you don't have without access to many of the rights and liberties.
there wouldn't be a warrant because there's no charge.
Exactly. You'd have to have a charge to bring with warrants and
I tell you, I would take a detailed look at that
Yeah.
legislation because right now I think we're just.
well,
we're-
what
we're-
you said
we're
is
talking
you
about-
voiced you voiced
Well,
agreement
yeah, I
that
tell you right
it's
now.
not right for
Yeah,
them to do that.
Well, terrorist suspects should not have the same rights as normal American citizens.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, and all we're saying is that the
I
legislation
would draw
blurs the line between
I
what that
draw the
means.
line between
whether you're
terrorism and
a
criminal
law-abiding
activity.
citizen or someone who should be detained indefinitely. And luckily there is an effort by the White House to veto this measure because it really throws out a lot of the due process and citizenship liberties that are guaranteed to us by the Constitution, by 13, 14, and 15 amendments. And interestingly enough, those were put in place after the Emancipation Proclamation, which had everything to do with defining what a citizen was. Because at that time you had to define what was a citizen, whether black, white, former slave, not a slave. And now with this indefinite detainment,
They want to say the United States is part of the battlefield, which kind of undermines the whole idea of we've been bombing kids in Muslim countries for a while, saying, well, we need to keep the war over there. But when it comes to our rights,
So you don't think
the war is here.
You don't think America is a battlefield as far as the war on terror is concerned?
That's been one of the reasons we're bombing other people.
it's something we have to be clear about. The rhetoric is to say we want to keep the battlefield over there, but we have to define what the battlefield is, and I don't think that's ever really been clearly defined. And if
I'm
it
not even
hasn't,
sure it's
then we need
contained to the planet.
Well,
I'm not
okay,
even sure
well-
it's contained to the planet.
Listen, let's not be naive here.
There you go.
If we say that America is not a battlefield, and basically what we're trying to imply is there is no threat against the United States of America.
That doesn't.
No, that's
make
not what I'm
sense.
trying. If
Well,
there's
now-
a threat, then let's define it. Let's make it so that this legislation or the laws are very clear, and that regular law-abiding citizens cannot be lumped into the same category as a terrorist. And I think that's the problem. I think we've said how many times terrorist in this episode today, and for the last 10, 12 years, it hasn't been clear as to who those people are and why they're doing what they're doing.
It goes to defining what terroristic activities are and what that
You'll be
consists
surprised
of.
when you read this list.
Yeah.
Go look at that bill and the things that they consider to be suspicious.
Yeah.
Owning a gun, getting your news from the internet are a couple of them.
So people that are watching us on YouTube
that's only
could be
the left wingers that want
get
to put
investigated.
certain holes.
Well,
on
I don't
guns
think
and,
that's disingenuous because this bill is a bipartisan effort, and Republicans are trying to push it through with some Democrats who are helping them with that. And that's unfortunate. That's why I'm in the Democratic Party, so I can get rid of those guys who keep siding with the Republicans, and we can start doing some real change here. And maybe we'll get some independents that are disillusioned to
Who are
join their local
disillusioned?
party. I don't know. And maybe run for office. I think that's the goal. I think you and me and things that we're doing here, hopefully get the right people running.
guys, me and Joy,
so-
we're going to be on the ticket together.
Oh goodness, that'll really be bringing it back to when they had Democrats and Republicans on the ticket. Will be the Abraham Lincoln and what's that guy Johnson? Goodness.
Andrew Johnson.
Yeah, Andrew Johnson. And we'll free all the I don't know. Anyway, moving on. We did it again. We burned almost 30 minutes talking in here, and that's what we do. But we want to invite you to come and view us next week, where Jill will be back, and we'll be talking about local issues. We really got into national this week, so much so that we didn't even divided into two 15-minute segments. Just rolled right with it. But please check us out on Facebook page, on the official Points of Interest page. Check out Augusta Today, where you'll see links to citystink.net. If you want to get some independent media that's not tied to local big money.
There's no money.
There's no money. It's
Citystink.net.
They're practically broke. Citystink.net.
No fun.
No money.
Where Jill writes fantastic pieces, and where I'm sure we'll have some more topics where we'll get topics to talk about for next week's show.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
to
Yes.
talk to you.
Thank you so much, and
like your
we'll see you next
passion
week,
and your
guys.
energy.
Everybody have a great one.